Welcome to the PowettPlay podcast, where international cricketer Kieran, Powell and marketing genius Shannon join forces, bringing you captivating conversations with the biggest players in cricket and business. Join us as we dive into the lives of current stars in the cricketing world, the legends before them, and those extraordinary icons whose performances changed the game in both cricket and business. Exploring journeys both on and off the pitch, the boardroom, and everything in between. Get ready for an exhilarating blend of cricket, life, and business insights, with two insatiably passionate, infuriatingly no-holds-barred hosts, who, unfortunately for the rest of us, live and breathe this stuff for a living.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for episode 46 of the PowettPlay podcast. I'm your host, Shannon, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Kieran Powell. How are you, Kai?
I am cold, as you can tell by the matching hoodies, but not too bad outside of that. How about you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. I had a nice break last week, which was good. And yeah, like anything up north, I'm just getting used to now settling in for the grimness, which is the winter months. So, but let's be... There's plenty of cricket being played, so that's keeping me very much occupied, which is a bonus. But I wanted to start really with the news that of the potential return of one-day cricket to Ben Stokes, really. And I think we discussed that, potentially that's going to happen anyway. But he sort of come out and confirmed that. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, as we sort of discussed previously, I thought that was something that was always going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
I think obviously with McCullum taking over the full-time role across formats for England, and it seems to be someone that he's extremely comfortable with. I don't know if he would have had a coach that he'd have been this comfortable with in his entire career, by the looks of their working relationship. So, I mean, I wasn't surprised at the news. I wouldn't be surprised if he's named captain of the Champions Trophy squad either. I think Josh Butler looks a man burdened with the responsibility of England's captaincy.
Yeah.
Seems to be someone that is going to give it a go until he's told not to, as opposed to stepping away. I think he should have stepped away after the 50 over World Cup and just continued. Just continued as a player because everyone knows the quality that he has. But it seems to be something that he wants to try and prove to, I guess, more so himself than anything at this point, that he can do it. But I just think that it's not something that he needs or that's beneficial for England, sort of similar to when Joe Root was moved aside as Test captain, and then you see his return to form and how he's flourished as well, because obviously the strain of Test captaincy had weighed him down significantly towards the end. And I think that's something what's happening to Butler now. So I think it would be a good transition. Mind you, I think that they should stick with Harry Brook.
I know you're an advocate. You're keen on that.
I think that, just the long-term benefits, because after the Champions Trophy, I think the next 50 over World Cup is 2 years on from that.
Yeah,
and
Stokes
pretty much. So pretty much Stokes, Butler, Root, all these guys won't be in and around, I guess, the England team at that point. So it gives Harry Brook an opportunity at a world tournament with a senior squad who can guide him, who can help him along, and obviously builds nicely for him towards going into a World Cup in 3 years' time.
Yeah, definitely. I think the point that you made there, 2 points, I totally agree with you. I agree. I think Josh Butler should have stood down at that point. I think Matthew Mott took the real blunt of that sort of poor performance. And I think that Josh Butler should have just called it a day, really, because not only is he captain and one of the best one-day batters, white ball players in the world cricket, he had the gloves as well. It's a real tough ask, that, I imagine, and I think that to maximise his not potential, but his performances, I think it's just a case of let's just take a step back. And then you mentioned there about Harry Brook. What a great way for him to start his captaincy regime with the likes of Root, with the likes of Butler, with the likes of Stoke. It's just going to make his life so much easier and so much more comfortable with being able to share these ideas, rather than potentially, obviously, after the Champions Trophy, whether it's a success or not, And then he's like, right, okay, I think you need that sort of that period of time. And I think it's a very, very good point that you made there.
Yeah, 100%. And I just think that, I mean, obviously England have one eye on the immediate future, which is the Champions Trophy. But if you cast your mind towards, I guess, the next 50 over World Cup, you want to give yourself as best a chance building a team towards that. And you want to have players settled in nicely by the time that comes around, obviously. So I think just knowing that that's probably going to be the situation. And even if you sort of, let's say, give someone like a Ben Stokes the captaincy, it's not going to be a long-term move because his body and his workload, especially with being test captain and him now back to bowling, he just physically can't manage to play that much cricket.
No, it's just not going to be possible at all. And I think that this is where I want to see, we've discussed it again on the last, 5-6 episodes about this multi-format coach, and having one coach is the big benefit. With this now in mind, is that you'd like to think that Brendan McCullum could have that 2-year, 3-year plan of controlling obviously players' game time, and part of that will be obviously making sure that he can't play all form. He's just not going to be able to go and do that in the volume of cricket. He's got to focus on Test cricket and getting ready for what is the next big thing. Is the Ashes, and obviously white ball wides have got the World Cup in 2 years. But what I wanted to ask you is, how much of an influence will or could Brendan McCullum have with the volume of cricket that is played in England, white ball, 50 over wides? Because we discussed it 2 or 3 weeks ago about them playing this Royal London 40 over, which was, it was borderline second team cricket, which is a shame. Do you believe he could influence that to basically say we need to be playing 50 over cricket, or do you think that's out of his hands?
I think he seems to be a very powerful man within English cricket. I think he seems to be very loved and very respected, obviously, to get the position across the table. Yeah. I think that his word holds high value and they have high respect for him. So I think that, if he puts certain suggestions forward, obviously, I think they'll be taken into consideration. Now, whether those are implemented or not is a completely different thing, but I think that they'll give it the best chance of happening based on, I guess, the relationship he seems to have with Rob Key at the moment, and just what he's done in terms of invigorating or reinvigorating English cricket. I think another thing is obviously with his appointment, I mean, it's pretty much a very clear message as to the types of players that England will be selecting going forward. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily test players or ODI players. Like, it's players that are playing positively across the board, because the guys that are going to do well for McCullum in test cricket can easily play one day and T20 cricket as well, as it's pretty much the same tempo and the same style of play that they're going at across the board. So you sort of think of guys like Virender Sehwag that comes to mind first and foremost when you think of somebody that just played exactly the same across formats, because someone like Chris Gayle altered his game when it came to the test format, and it wasn't necessarily someone that had a strike rate of 70, 80, 90, whereas Virender Sehwag had a career strike rate of, what was it, 80?
80,
and an average of 49. So that in itself tells you all that you need to know. But I think it's pretty clear the types of players England are looking for across the board now, whether you're a batter or a bowler. It's impact players that can come and impact a game, whether you're a bowler, come and get a wicket or make a breakthrough during crucial periods, have something different about you. And if you're a batter, you need to be able to put pressure on the bowling attack across all phases of the game, regardless of format or stage of the game now.
Yeah. Well, the points that you made there about the openers is, I want to sort of jump a little bit now, because I was going to discuss the England versus Australia one-day series. But I wanted to ask you, there's quite a lot of talk at the minute in terms of Steve Smith going down to 4 for the Test series against India, which opens up this opener slot again. Now, I believe the rumours are that they're keeping the same top 6, which means that either Mitchell Marsh or Travis Head are going to go and open the batting, which will then obviously make what you were saying before there, that one of them two are going to go at the top order, who will be obviously, looking to push on that strike rate as well. Do you think that that's a good move to go with one of them? What's your take?
I mean, if if they're going to keep the same top six, then it can only be one of those two.
Yeah.
And obviously, those two guys have opened the batting across different formats. I think it's heavily leaning towards Travis Head at the moment. You look at his exploits across one day and T20 cricket, and he's just absolutely flying at the moment. Like the past 18 to 24 months, he's probably been Australia's best batter by a long distance across formats. And so I think it's going to be interesting because obviously Test cricket is a game unto itself where the ball does a lot more, as evidenced by Steve Smith opening the batting. I mean, he's by far, in my opinion, the greatest batter of this generation. And we see what struggles he had facing the new ball as opposed to coming in after there's been some damage done to the ball. So Travis Head, it's going to be interesting. Teams have tried to, I guess, bounce him out, etc. in the past, coming in the middle. Obviously, with a new ball, a harder ball, it gets onto you that much quicker. So it's going to be interesting to see how he goes about it. Having said that, he is going to start his innings with 3 steps in a gully, which gives him a lot more space in the field. And the way he plays, he could race off to 50 in absolutely no time if he gets going. So
totally.
I guess it's going to be an issue of, figuring out what level of consistency they expect from him and how can he sort of produce that as an opener. Because if he gets going, he will be entertaining. But how often will he get going and how much will he taper his game to suit a new position?
Yeah, which is going to be that's the thing really, because I know that there's talk of, I'm sure there's 3 Shield games before the series starts in India. So effectively, either him or Mitchell Marsh are going to have, I wouldn't be surprised if they both go and do it for their respective states to make sure, as to keep, I know Australia obviously will like to keep some of their options open and also keep the cards close to the chest. And ultimately, because if one goes and does it and the other doesn't, effectively, obviously they've gone and, publicly put out what the plans are. But I'm sure over the next few weeks before that starts, we can look into that. But I wanted to ask you again, obviously, in terms of the ODI series and what you make of, other than the weather tarnishing what seems to be quite a nice balanced series at times, which is just frustrating. And, it goes back to the schedule conversation that we have time and time again, that England are playing Australia and the crowds aren't there and people are sitting watching it rain. It's a real shame. But in terms of the actual balance of the games, what's been your make of that really?
It's tough to judge because you get a sense that both teams aren't trying to get necessarily wins out of the situation. It's more so testing out new players and seeing how they cope under the spotlight of international cricket.
Yeah, I agree.
Obviously, both teams are missing key figures, resting key figures during the series as well. So it's an interesting situation. What I would say is that Australia they know how to win cricket games when they turn up. It's unbelievable when Australia. I mean, I think they had a run of
14 in a row.
Yeah, which is almost their longest streak ever.
Yeah.
And when you think that includes a World Cup campaign, then that just tells you that they don't only just know how to win, they know how to win in high-pressured situations.
Yeah, massively.
And so for them, they'll be happy that they're ticking all boxes because you look at Alex Carey, for example, was dropped in the World Cup. Josh Inglis came in, he's sort of first choice, but he's injured and Carey's now staking a claim with 2 very good half centuries not out. You look at Aaron Hardy ticking some boxes there as well.
Big time.
And then you look from an English standpoint. You've got Phil Salt, who hasn't really, I guess, from his vantage point, taken the opportunities he would have been given thus far in the series. You've got a Ben Duckett, who I think is obviously a good player.
Yeah.
Could be interesting when Josh Butler comes back and figuring out whether they want to go the left-right combination or if they want to go 2 right-handers to Will Salt. Obviously, I think Will Jacks is highly undervalued. I think that he's got something about him. He can play, in my opinion. And then you look at Harry Brook getting his first ODI century. So I think that, both sides are, I guess, ticking boxes in terms of trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
But it's not a series where I think either of them will, apart from it being England versus Australia, I don't think either of them will necessarily mind too much who wins the series as long as they get out of it what they want. Because, I mean, cricket in England at the end of September with not full houses again, with England, Australia tells you all that you need to know.
Yeah, it does. And I hope that part of it is looked into because, that England versus Australia, whether it be T20, a test match or, or a one day international, should be played in front of a full crowd in the height of the summer because we do, that it's the traditions and stuff. It's, it should be really. I think you made some good points there about some of the teams and stuff. It's been good to see and have a look at some new players. I think Aaron Hardy looks very, very good for Australia. I know he's highly, highly fancied, and they've got another one of those all-rounders to come in to consider, which is, when it comes to limited overs cricket, to have those all-rounders available, it gives you a massive, massive benefit. I think one thing I have, I'm not necessarily coming out of the blue with something like this, but I think Adam Zampa's been really impressive in this series as well. And I think one thing that they missed in the game that they lost was those 10 overs in the middle patch where England sort of got going. And it didn't, he's become so reliable, and it's such a real asset that Australia have. And I think I'm sure I read a stat that I think it's out of the 14 games or something that they went on that winning streak for. There's only two consistent players. I think it was Marnus Labuschagne and Zampa, yeah. Which goes to show, which is interesting, really, given the fact that Labuschagne wasn't even in the original one-day international squad either. He only came in after Ashton Agar. Pulled out. So it's a fair effort and it's good. And I think that it's a little bit of a shame that the weather's tarnishing it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show as well, if you want to beat an Australian team, you have to make the spinner be a non-factor.
Yeah.
That's just so evident to me. And I've said this during the T20 World Cup to you as well. Like, if anyone wants to beat Australia, they have to target Adam Zampa and force the quick bowlers to come back into the attack. If you want to beat them in Test cricket, you have to make Nathan Lyon be a non-factor.
Yeah.
Their spinners have played such a key role in handling one end, controlling one end of the game for them and allowing them to rotate their fast bowlers. And Australia is a very interesting place. And I think I'd love to see some figures or study done on how they're able to manage Hazelwood, Stark and Cummins so well over such a long period. Because you think of other countries, across formats, they'll change maybe a bowler here or there. Yeah. And the bowling attack is not necessarily the same. Whereas within Australia, I guess, in Test cricket, it's Lyon. In limited overs cricket, it's Zampa. But the quicks remain the same.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily find guys transferring skills across three formats like that so well. So it's very interesting to me. But what I guess teams should do or look to do is targeting the Australian spinner. And if that means that you lose a few wickets to the spinner, I guess that's worth the gamble in terms of you ultimately winning games against Australia. But I think that's the way that teams should go.
Yeah, no, I remember you mentioning it in the T20 World Cup, and I think it's become evident as well in terms of obviously that with Adam Zampa. I think teams are going to start to, they need to be obviously put strategy in place in terms of how to go and target that and stuff. So it'd be interesting to see how that develops over with the Champions Trophy, because I think ultimately we'll probably go in as either one of the key members of any side, really. What have you been watching, or been watching the CPL at all?
I forgot it was on until this morning. I thought it was over. I saw some scores come through with obviously Guyana versus Barbados last night.
Yeah.
My favourite left-hander in the Caribbean outside of myself, Mr. Shimron Hetmeyer.
Yeah.
Made another half century, so he's having a very good season, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's been long. It's been, I guess, underwhelming in a sense. Like, you've not really sort of had the performances that one would hope or expect. But
no,
yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
No, I've been watching it and keeping an eye on it and stuff, and I think you mentioned 2 weeks ago we spoke about obviously the way that it can be changed and stuff, and I think that since then it's maybe that's subconsciously in the back of my mind, but I think once I've watched it, we've been watching it and stuff after your comments, it's very true that they do need to look at a way of trying to just get some young blood into the tournament, and also like look at ways of trying to just take it to that next step to make it commercially work and stuff. But it's been good to see some of the key play. There's from a West Indies standpoint internationally, there's been some good performances over the last sort of 6 weeks. Yeah, probably about 6 weeks really since then and stuff. But getting down to the nitty gritty, I think there is only 3 or 4 more, maybe 5 more games, and then it goes into like quality eliminators and stuff like that, really. So I just hope that everything works out weather-wise and stuff, because I know that there's been a few bits and pieces in Trinidad, especially. I think some of the weather's been a bit iffy and things, but I'm not sure where they go to finish the tournament. I thought last year it was Guyana. They went back to Guyana.
Same again.
Is it the same? So they go back to some of them played in Trinidad and they go back to
Guyana.
To Guyana and stuff. So I'll be interested to see how that goes. To be honest with you, go back to a bit of red ball now again. So have you seen much of the series with Sri Lanka versus New Zealand?
I have. Kamindu Mendis he's in the purple patch of purple patches that has ever purple patched. He has scored at least a half century in his past 5 matches. He's got 2 centuries in that period, and he's now on 51, not out if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And New Zealand have dropped him when he was on 26. And dare I say, I think they're going to regret this very much tomorrow when he gets going.
Yeah. I think I was reading, the first time in 147 years. It's amazing. It goes to show that it's not even, that's just not something that happens. Wow, amazing. He must be, looks like he's batting with the bat must be 6 foot wide and he's facing a ball that's like the size of a beach ball.
Well, they're playing in Gaul, and I think New Zealand must be thinking they're bowling to Gaul foot as opposed to this little ball just keeps bouncing back. And, obviously, you think of Steve Smith went on an absolutely crazy run at one point in time there when he was literally just turned up and got centuries. But this was someone that had played X amount of games, whereas this is the very beginning of Kamindu Mendis' career, and he's already, I don't think he's got 10 test matches yet, and I think he's already got 4 or 5 test centuries, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be closing in on whoever is the quickest to 1,000 test runs. Getting these kind of scores this consistently early in his career. And I think what's been impressive as well is it's not all been in Sri Lanka. So obviously he's gone to Bangladesh, done it. He's come to England and done it. And he's gone back to Sri Lanka now, and he's doing it there as well. So I think he's done it against quite a few oppositions now for you to say there's enough of a sample size. Obviously, there was much talk about him batting all the way down at number 7 when he started against Bangladesh and here in England. And they've promoted him now to number 5. They've shuffled the order somewhat. So Fusal Mendis has gone down to 7 and is keeping now. Dennis Chandimal has gone up to number 3, and he made a century as well as 16th test century. So you look at it and you think, obviously they're trying to give him as much opportunity and as much time as possible to continue developing, to continue his good form, and potentially even move up to number 4 when the likes of an Angelo Matthews retires, who's now 37, and who knows how much longer he'll play, but at least he has the opportunity to sort of develop and mold himself now in higher positions and prepare to bat in the top 3, top 4 when that time comes.
Yeah, definitely. Is Kamindu Mendis the one who bowls right arm off break and left arm spin as well? I'm sure he is.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
That is just.
So he's obviously very much a clearly very gifted individual.
Definitely.
And I mean, Sri Lanka's had some very good players over the year. You think of the Sangakkars, the Mahela Jayawardenas, the Aravinda de Silvas, etc. But this guy's just from the offset, just taken to it like nothing that we've seen. So it's going to be interesting. I've seen some talk from a few Australians, sort of Brad Haddin and those guys in their podcast talking about him, and obviously Australia heading out to Sri Lanka. I think it's early next year, and that's one place in the subcontinent where I'd say it's completely different to all the other places, because I think the pitches there can turn against you as an opposing team very quickly. Like the game shifts very quickly in Sri Lanka. You can be a lot for not much and then be out for that score within the span of 10 overs, so it's going to be interesting, as I said, to see how he continues to play and develop, and being tested by different oppositions, trying different skill sets. I think New Zealand, on the other hand, had a chance. I think they missed an opportunity in that first test match, honestly, because they got a lead in the first innings, and Galle being a place where the ball spins so much, I think they sort of let Sri Lanka get too much in that second innings, and then obviously Joyce Surya again is another one who's only played 15 test matches and has got something like 85 test wickets. So they've got guys for their conditions, and they're quite confident that those guys will perform given that you put them in the right situations, which they tend to do more often than not at home, and especially in Galle. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how New Zealand goes about their first innings with the bat. Mind you, that seems to be quite some way away given the current score. But I think New Zealand, if they bat properly, they have a chance here, but they need to limit Sri Lanka's score here in the first innings and definitely in the second innings, because Galle is not a place where historically big second innings chases are going to happen.
No, I think I've actually really enjoyed the series. I think it was really level. I know obviously we mentioned there, but I think that it's quite a balanced, two teams. Oh no, I think New Zealand. I think I'm enjoying it. I think it's good, and I think Sri Lanka are working on something quite. I think they're getting a good little side together, to be honest with you. I wanted to ask you a question to finish. You mentioned there about Mendis being dropped. What's the biggest one that you've cashed in on, and two that you have dropped and you think, oh my God, this is going to bite me in the arse?
That I've dropped, I can't remember. I try to forget those things. I remember, I'll tell you a match that I was in that I can remember. I think Jermaine Blackwood was dropped on, would it be 20-something or 30-something, and made 246 or something like that.
Oh, no.
And the coach was adamant that I shouldn't be at slips for whatever reason. The new guy went in and dropped it.
Oh, no.
I was absolutely livid. I'm still angry to this day.
You see it?
I feel as though I'm still in the field to this day. That I've cashed in on. Not sure. I guess I've been dropped pretty early and made centuries, more so in 50 over matches and stuff. But in 40 matches, I don't seem to have much luck with being dropped, unfortunately. I would have loved a bit of Manas's rub of the green.
Yeah.
Getting dropped. I can tell you one that I can't forget, though. Well, two. When I used to be captain of the Leeward Islands Hurricanes franchise. So once I won the toss in Sinkits and put the Windward Islands in. Sunil Ambrose made 200 and something. And he's a very good friend of mine. I absolutely hate it. To this day, I get sick. And then another time, I won the toss again against the Windward Islands in a 50-over match in Antigua. Put them in, and they made 340 or something.
Oh, no.
We won the game. We still won the game, but I have a solid mantra now. Anytime I'm captain, it doesn't matter what it is, I am not bowling first because I'm not giving anyone the opportunity to get any big runs. If we get out cheaply, well, the game will finish quickly. But I'm not giving anyone a chance to make any big runs. So those are the ones that I can remember.
No, I think it's one of them where we you just want the ground to swallow you up in those moments. Oh my God. I remember one when I dropped a dolly at slip to a left-arm spinner bowling round the wicket. Absolutely, like someone throwing a packet of crisps to me, dropped it, and then it was the Sri Lankan professional at the time. He then went berserk, and I was like, oh my God. And thankfully, he got out when it didn't affect the game. But honestly, for that 40 minutes, I was like, oh my God, this has got to stop.
And the thing is, look, I count every run after.
100%.
I would have dropped the catches. I just feel sick.
Oh, awful. The thing is as well, between him, he must have been on about 6 and then he got about 88, early 80s it was. And from that period of time, I'm thinking, like I said, you're counting the runs. He didn't give a sniff. It was like the most chanceless knock. I'm thinking, just get something, just make something like, oh my God, it was. And it's like, like I said, the whole thing just stops. And especially being when I was captain at the time, he was like, it was worse. It was horrendous. It was horrendous. But, you look back and you do have a little bit of a laugh, especially when it doesn't affect the game, thankfully. But as they say, catches win matches. So.
100%.
Well, thank you so much for tonight, and thank you for listening and watching, everyone. And we do really appreciate you all tuning in and stuff. So keep fired. We've got some lovely guests over the next few weeks and months. So thank you very much, and speak to you all soon.
Thank you for joining us on the PowettPlay podcast, hosted by Kieran, Powell and Jordan Shannon. We hope you enjoyed this immersive dive into the world of cricket and business, exploring the unique experiences and perspectives of players past and present, alongside those invaluable insights into intriguing business themes that transcend beyond the boundaries of sporting heroics. Be sure to set your reminders on your Alexa or Google Home device, or we won't tell anyone if you still use those paper calendar things from a bygone era. Join us next time for more inspiring dialogue with scintillating minds on the PowettPlay podcast.